won 3 out of the 4 quarters. We got away from who we are in the third quarter, whether it's home or away, it's the details.
Again, Jimmy Butler doing whatever required and needed. Here's the start. Joe Mazzulla in this last timeout, not happy.
We were prepared. We played harder than them in the first half, and then they outplayed us for 1 quarter.
Butler launching a three on the side.
No. We had the right mindset heading into the game. We played harder than they did, and we were prepared. And we did a great job.
Third quarter made all the difference. Right?
It did, but we were prepared, and then we let go of the rope.
Miami scores 45 third quarter points. Outscores the C's by 20.
Going up against Spoelstra, who's constantly making adjustments on the fly, willing to kind of call timeouts and change things up so quickly.
I called 2 in the first quarter.
Thinking more like the third quarter.
No, I don't call 2 in the first quarter. Save it for the third quarter run.
Flag has been raised. Miami has come into Boston in game 1 and 1.
Well, Joe Mazzulla's performance in the game and on the mic getting the attention of the Boston Globe's Dan Shaughnessy, who wrote this in the Globe today. Quote, Mazzulla is like a 16-year-old with a learner's permit who's being asked to parallel park an 18-wheeler in Kendall Square at rush hour. I mean, what could go wrong? Well, we've got Danny Shaughnessy from the Globe here. Tom Giles joins us as well alongside Eddie House. Tommy, when you read that today, I mean, I thought it was like, oh, that's Dan right there. Perfection, because it completely sums it up.
I mean, I hope to never see someone try to parallel park an 18-wheeler in that situation, especially in rush hour. But look, it feels like this Celtics team, and I still go back to the players, to me. And I can understand that the inexperience maybe plays a little bit of a factor here as far as the coaching goes, but there's problems with the 18-wheeler right now. Like, the 18-wheeler is not going the way it needs to go, and that's the players to me, and that was the issue going into the second half.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's about the players, because you have a rookie coach, and everybody understands that he's learning on the fly. He's gonna make mistakes, but at the same time, who was in situations last year? Who made it to the finals? Everybody that was on the court last night. So if you've been in these situations, you have more experience than this guy in his position. And you've been in conference finals before. This is not their first conference finals that they're playing in. So in that situation, giving up 40, that has nothing to do with the effort. That has nothing to do with blown assignments. That has nothing to do with not getting your guy the ball when you should. And Marcus Smart had 10 assists in the first half, only finishes with 11. And so he should be hunting out, making sure that I got to get Jason Tatum a touch. Everybody should be aware of that. And it does fall down on the coach ultimately, but really the players, you got to take accountability and say, like Marcus Smart said, we got to take a look in the mirror and say, did we put our best foot forward?
Yeah, and I don't even blame the coach in this instance. It's not his fault. I mean, he was in the second row last year. He got vaulted over a lot of guys because he was not an Udoka guy. They gave him the job. It's pleasure cruise all year. It's great. But it's being exposed now in these playoffs. You had game 4 in Philly where he admitted the day after, should have given us a shot in the last 19 seconds there, maybe called a timeout. So it's not happening. He's learning on the job, and that's unfortunate in the conference finals. You're right, it's always the players. These guys got to the finals last year. They lost game 1 at home to the Heat last year. They know what it's about, and it gives them a little bit of a crutch. Hey, our coach, he's learning with us the whole thing, which is unfortunate.
It is always the players, but obviously, we're talking about Joe Mazzulla. You're writing about Joe Mazzulla. There was a column today in the South Florida Sun-Sentinel about Joe Mazzulla and being outmatched and outcoached by Eric Spoelstra. And Eddie, while we're listening to that sound, you're shaking your head laughing, going, is he really talking about winning quarters? Like, even if what you're doing in-game doesn't quite go the way you want it to, the way that I feel like sums things up afterwards, or the accountability after games, there's something they're lacking. Like, you don't win anything when you win quarters in basketball.
Well, if you win every quarter, you win the game, right? At the end of it all. And if you win some quarters bigger than others, you win the game. Exactly what happened with last night. Miami won that quarter pretty big, that third quarter. But at the same time, I think that we're all pointing to Joe Mazzulla at times and saying, it got to be Joe, but you have a coaching staff around you. So at times that's why you have assistant coaches that you could lean on. That's why you have partners that you can lean on. That's why you have teammates, because at times you might be so entrenched in what's happening on the floor and trying to find a matchup. That's when your assistant coach say, hey, man, we might want to call a timeout right here. TV timeout's coming up. We don't want to lose this timeout. Let's just burn it. It's more than just him. You know, it's the surrounding cast, and it's everybody from top to bottom. So I don't want to just put the blame on Joe solely, and I don't want to put the blame on one particular player solely. I think it's a team thing, and it's a team sport, and that's where, you know, last night they failed. Team-wise, they just didn't get it done.
All right, well, the third quarter was the Celtics' downfall. They were outscored by 21 points, allowing 46. They were out-rebounded by 8 while committing 4 turnovers. So how many timeouts did Joe Mazzulla call? That would be a big, fat 0. And listen, I get that this is on the players, but part of your job, Dan, as a head coach, is to know what your players are like and to know that not one time this year, maybe one time, that's probably an exaggeration. Not very often does this team see another team, their opponent, make a run on them and then calm themselves down on the court. Like, at some point you have to go, okay, what we've been doing all regular season and through the first 2 rounds isn't working. I need to step in here. I need to be the grown-up. I need to be the coach.
Well, we saw that in the fourth quarter when the Celtics got out quick. Spoelstra put a stop to it.
Yeah.
He called timeout. Next thing you know, they calmed down and they stopped the bleeding. And that hasn't been happening here. It's frustrating. I've been watching basketball a million years. Eddie, what would happen if a player just called timeout?
No,
are they allowed to do that?
No, you're not allowed to do that. That's not, unless you're hurt or anything like that. But let's not forget, okay, Eric Spoelstra, what is in his 15th season? And I was there the first year that it was LeBron James, that big 3, and we lost in the NBA Finals in that game. So he was learning how to coach superstars, how to understand how to manage games in these big-time moments. He had never been there before in those moments. So you have to give somebody the opportunity to grow, but it pains us because while he's growing, we're suffering, right? Yeah. And at times, players are losing opportunities because you might never get back to this. And people think that we tend to think, because the Celtics have been constantly been in the Eastern Conference Finals, went to the Finals last year, that it's just a given, and it's not. You know, the Boston Celtics fans have been blessed for the talent that they have and been here in this situation, but you have to go with these growing pains. The same way you did with these young players, you got to do that with this young coach. But these young players are not young anymore, and they have to bring along this young coach. That's what happens. It has to be a balance right now.
Well, sometimes it's about the players who are on the court, or maybe in this instance, who are not on the court. One question we're all asking, where was Grant Williams? The C's forward, as you can see on the right, riding the pine all night long. What makes the decision even more questionable, Grant played a big role in last year's conference finals against the Heat. He averaged 30 minutes, nearly 9 points per game. And today, Joe Mazzulla was asked about his decision to not play Williams.
I mean, we have a plan to use the depth that we need in order to give us the lineups that we think can really help us. And, you know, obviously in the playoffs when minutes are expanding, you look to play 7 or 8 guys, which we've kind of done throughout. And, you know, I think in the start, I thought Peyton gave us an opportunity, you know, with his shooting, with his playmaking, and, you know, his pick and roll defense. And, you know, like we said before, Grant is always going to be ready. And we've built a lot of versatility and depth in our lineup to where we can go a lot of different ways. And, you know, we trust that anybody that we call on will be ready.
Giles, I've had a hard time understanding why, for a big chunk of these playoffs, we have not seen more of Grant Williams. And I understand he's not a superstar, but he does those, he does those hustle things, right? He goes out there, he adds energy, he adds a defensive element. I'm not sure why he's not playing more, in particular last night.
I mean, the third quarter felt like the perfect time to put him in the game, right? You just laid out the numbers, what he did last year against Miami. We saw what he did in a big moment in Game 7 against Milwaukee a year ago. It just felt to me, they came out of the locker room without urgency, without energy, without, you know, intensity. And Grant Williams, if nothing else, can give you those things. And so I'm just surprised that he hasn't been used in those situations, especially, you know, and he turned to Peyton Pritchard. And I got no problem with that. And he left Peyton Pritchard on the floor long enough to see, can he give us a spark? Well, why not try Grant Williams in that situation to try to give you something, because what they were lacking was kind of the intangibles that it feels like Grant Williams has given you in the past.
Eddie, from a matchup perspective, was it the right decision to not go with Grant Williams, or would you like to have seen more of him out there?
Well, I would like to see more Grant Williams for this reason. I don't think Miami's a very big team. Grant Williams gives you defensive versatility against bigs. He can switch out against guards. He could guard. He's also a guy that can stretch the floor and give more room for your players to operate and make plays. And so, to me, I think what we got caught up in last night, the Celtics, were trying to match up against the Heat. instead of making them match up against us. Go out there and play our game, play our guys, and make them match up against us. Go out on your shield that way, as opposed to saying, oh, they got smaller guys out here. We got to try to match up with them. They're going to try to play this way. Let's match up. No, that's not what you do. If you feel you are the better, superior, more talented team from top to bottom, you go out there and you put your best foot forward and you put your team out there in a position to be successful, and you could live with that, as opposed to saying, man, you know what? You start second guessing yourself. Maybe I should have did this. Maybe I should have. No, let's go do this. And if they beat us, they beat us, and you tip your cap to them. But you can't go out trying to match up against a team that's top to bottom, roster-wise. We all know that's not better.
Dano, how did you feel about Peyton Pritchard being out there for so long?
Well, it's proof that it's hard to play with splinters in your butt. You know, he's out there, and they were hunting him right away. I mean, they got Butler. They had Pritchard guarding Butler a couple times, and he's 6 inches taller. That's a lot to ask, and you know, a tough position for the kid to be in. It wasn't helpful. I'm with Eddie on this. I mean, Grant Williams, even Hauser, who's a bigger guy, and he's a marksman. The Grant Williams thing is curious to me because, you know, he was such an important piece last year. Game 2 at home against the Heat last year, he had 17 points, I think, plus 37, won the game. And we knew the first series in the doghouse, he's not playing against Capella, bad matchup. Then he gets to guard Embiid a little bit in the next round. And now, I mean, Eddie's right. The Heat are small. So this gives you a chance to get some matchups that are going to be in your favor and go big against them.
Yeah, and it just, I still can't get over it because you go back to Game 2 against Philadelphia, he had his chest right into Joel Embiid and just kind of declared, like, I'm going to be in your space, I'm going to make it uncomfortable for you. And he's, like, willing to take on those roles, which is why I just feel like he probably could have given you something that you were potentially missing.
Can I say this real quick? And for Grant Williams to stay ready, this is a message to him. Stay ready. And I know it's so hard. It's easy to say that while we're sitting here, but it's a contract year for him. You know, he had an opportunity they didn't pick up. And so now all of a sudden, now you're not getting minutes. You don't have the opportunity to play. Your time will come. And when your time comes, just make sure you have the right mindset so you can deliver, and then eventually you will get your money.